going on, everybody? Welcome back. Let's get into this whole Lakers conversation that's been buzzing lately, because there's been so much talk about whether this team really needs to go out and chase a big man like Daniel Gafford or maybe even Nick Claxton. The trade ideas have been flying around, and I know a lot of fans are itching for some kind of move, but I want to break it down in a way that makes sense for the bigger picture. Because not every shiny piece out there is actually worth giving up the kind of assets the Lakers would have to throw on the table. So, here's the gist of what's been floating around. There was a proposal where the Lakers would basically send out Gabe Vincent, Dalton Knecht, Jackson Hayes, plus a first-round pick and a pick swap in a three-team deal with Brooklyn and Dallas. The Lakers would get back Haywood Highsmith and Daniel Gafford. On paper, it sounds like you're shoring up the rotation with another wing and a dependable backup big. But when you dig a little deeper, you start asking yourself, is this really the best way to spend assets? Because a backup center, in the grand scheme of things, is not going to make or break your title chances. The role of a backup big man in today's NBA is so limited. These guys are not starting 70 games a season. They're not playing 30 minutes a night. They're usually giving you somewhere around 15 minutes in the regular season, and once you get to the playoffs, it shrinks even more. You're talking about maybe 8 to 10 minutes a night because you're starting big. In this case, DeAndre Ayton is going to be logging 35 plus. So, spending a first-round pick, a swap, and young talent on a role that might only matter for a handful of minutes in the postseason feels like overkill. That's why I've always said the Lakers' priorities should be elsewhere. You want to shore up the starting three spot, you want to make sure you've got reliable two-way wings, and then, if you can sneak a backup center into the deal without giving up much, sure, go for it. But paying a premium? That's a different story. For example, if you're already talking to a team about a deal for a wing and you can get someone like Nick Richards or Daron Sharp thrown into the package, that makes sense. If you can turn a negotiation into a 2-for-1 where the center is almost like a bonus, then I'd pull the trigger. Now, when we bring Nick Claxton into the conversation, it gets even more interesting. Claxton is such a unique defender in this league. He's not the bruising big like Gafford who's going to muscle people under the rim, but he's mobile, switchable, and can legitimately guard on the perimeter. We're talking about one of the most versatile defensive centers in basketball. He can handle the pick and roll, he can block shots, and he's fast enough to recover if he gets pulled out of the paint. Honestly, he's everything Lakers fans are hoping Jackson Hayes turns into. The only difference is Claxton has already proven he can do it at high level. But here's the hang-up, his contract. Claxton is making over $25 million this year. That's a significant salary number to take on, and it means you've got to send out more pieces to make the math work. The upside, though, is that his contract actually goes down each season, sliding to 23 next year and just under 21 the year after that. That kind of descending deal could end up being a blessing for a team like the Lakers that's constantly dancing around the apron and luxury tax. Even a $2 million difference can decide whether you're hard-capped or not. The more I look at it, the more I think Claxton could actually be cheaper to acquire than Gafford. That might sound crazy because Claxton's making more money, but from Brooklyn's perspective, moving him clears the books and creates flexibility. They might not even ask for much in return if it means shedding that contract. And again, we're talking about a guy who's younger, more versatile, and arguably fits better alongside Ayton, because you could even play them together in certain lineups. Claxton at the 4, Ayton at the 5, suddenly you've got rim protection and switchability everywhere. Still, there's the bigger question. Should the Lakers even be throwing assets at a backup center right now? Personally, I don't think so. You got to figure out your starting small forward. You got to see what Jackson Hayes looks like in a true backup role before you decide you need an upgrade. Hayes has been up and down, but in a limited role where all he's asked to do is bring energy, run the floor, and catch lobs, he might surprise people. 10 minutes a night of high-energy rim running is a lot easier to sustain than trying to hold up as a full-time starter. And remember, when it comes to playoff basketball, your backup big is not playing 20 minutes. He's in for short bursts. By then, the rotations are tighter, and your best players are carrying the load. So why give up a valuable young player like Knecht or a first-round pick for a guy who's only going to matter for 8 minutes a night in the postseason? It just doesn't add up to me. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Claxton or Gafford wouldn't help. They absolutely would. Both are quality players who could give you insurance in case Ayton misses time or struggles. Claxton, in particular, brings that defensive versatility that could raise the Lakers' ceiling on that end of the floor. But again, it's about cost. If it takes real assets, I'd hold off. If Brooklyn gets desperate and says, hey, take Claxton and maybe Highsmith too, then you listen. Otherwise, I'd rather keep the powder dry and see if someone like Herb Jones or another defensive wing becomes available, because that's the real hole in the roster. When we look at the Lakers' current situation, it's not just about who they can bring in, it's about what they might be giving up down the line. And that's something fans sometimes overlook when these trade ideas pop up. Every young player on the roster, every draft pick, every salary slot has value, and once you move it, it's gone. That's why timing is everything. For example, let's say the Lakers pull the trigger on a deal for a backup center now, and in a couple of months a player like R.J. Barrett or Miles Bridges becomes available. Suddenly, you don't have the pieces anymore to be in that conversation. And what do you need more? Another center who plays 10 minutes, or a wing who can give you 25 minutes every night and fill the gap that's been obvious for years. That's why I keep stressing patience, because options are going to open up. The NBA is unpredictable. A team that thinks they're a contender in October might realize by January that it's time to blow it up. And when that happens, that's when the Lakers need to be ready with their assets intact. Dalton Connect, Rui, Hachimura, those picks, those are bargaining chips that could land a legitimate starter. Giving them away for a role player doesn't feel like a smart move. Let's circle back to Jackson Hayes for a second, because he's really the wild card in this whole conversation. Last season, when he was pressed into a starting role, there were stretches where he looked really good. He was catching lobs, running the floor, bringing energy, and fans were hyped. But I kept saying, hold on, this isn't sustainable. Because once teams start game planning, once they cut off that lob threat, Hayes doesn't have a lot else to fall back on. He's not someone you can throw the ball to in the post and expect a bucket. He doesn't have a jumper. He's basically limited to dunks, putbacks, and hustle plays. That's why he's better suited for a backup role. Now in that limited role, I actually think he could be valuable. 10 minutes of chaos, blocking shots, flying for rebounds, sprinting in transition. That's exactly what you want from a second or third big. And when you look at how Ayton eats up minutes, plus the fact that the Lakers are going to play small with LeBron or Rui at the 5 in certain stretches, Hayes might not even need to be more than that. The question is, can he hold up in playoff minutes? Because during the regular season, you can get away with a lot. Teams are going to spend all their energy scheming to shut down a role player. But in the playoffs, they absolutely will. And that's when Hayes' limitations show. That's the contrast with someone like DeAndre Ayton. He can't be neutralized as easily. He's got footwork. He can hit a jumper. He can score with either hand. He can even face up and attack. He's more than just a lob threat. That's why Ayton is a starter and Hayes is a bench piece. But again, the point is Ayton is going to be on the floor 35 minutes a night in the postseason. That leaves such a small slice for the backup that it's hard for me to justify using premium assets to upgrade that spot. If we're being real, the only way I'd be comfortable overpaying for a backup center is if the Lakers already solved the starting 3 position and then realized later on, heading into the postseason, that they needed extra depth at the 5. Like if you already added an Andrew Wiggins, or better yet, someone like Herb Jones, and then you looked around and said, okay, now we need insurance behind Ayton. At that point, sure, send out an extra pick or a prospect for a guy like Gafford or Claxton, because then it's about polishing the roster, not filling major holes. Speaking of Herb Jones, let me just say this. If there's any world where the Lakers can pry him away from New Orleans, you do it. Overpay if you have to, because Herb is one of those rare players who can defend every position, who doesn't need the ball to make an impact, and who's just now entering the prime of his career. He's the type of guy who solves so many problems long-term. I'd rather give up Connect, Rui, a first, and pick swaps for Herb than send out that kind of package for Andrew Wiggins. It's not even close. Wiggins might give you flashes, but Herb gives you consistency and defensive identity for the next several years. And that ties back to the overall philosophy. You can only spend your assets once. Use them on the spots that matter most. The Lakers have been chasing that third star or that ideal two-way wing for years. If the opportunity finally shows up, You can't look back and say, oh, we wasted our ammo on a backup center. That's why, as tempting as Gafford or Claxton might look, as much as I'd love to see Claxton switch on to guards and block shots in purple and gold, I still think the smart play is to wait. One last thing to keep in mind. Both Gafford and Claxton are probably going to be available again in the offseason. Maybe even Nick Richards, depending on what happens with him. So even if Ayton experiment doesn't work out, even if you lose him in free agency, you'll still have options. You don't have to panic trade now. Sometimes waiting gives you more flexibility because contracts get shorter, prices drop, and teams get desperate. And by then, you'll also know what you have in Hayes. If he shows he can handle the backup job, maybe you don't even need to look for someone else. If he doesn't, then at least you know exactly what you're shopping for. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on. In what could be the most electrifying move of the NBA offseason, whispers are swirling around Los Angeles and beyond. Kevin Durant might be on the verge of saying yes to the Lakers. The basketball world has been on high alert ever since subtle hints from Durant's camp hinted at serious talks with the purple and gold. While nothing has been officially confirmed, insiders suggest that the superstar forward could be ready to bring his elite scoring touch to Los Angeles, sending shockwaves through the league. Sources close to Durant hint that the 10-time All-Star is intrigued by the Lakers' vision. With LeBron James continuing to redefine what it means to play at the highest level well into his late 30s and Anthony Davis anchoring the frontcourt, Durant joining the fold would instantly transform LA into the most feared lineup in the NBA. Executives and analysts alike are scrambling to speculate how the fit would work, with the buzz growing louder each day. Could this be the dawn of a new super team? A force so potent that it shakes the balance of power across both conferences? The Lakers front office is reportedly pulling out all the stops. Conversations about salary cap space, potential trade packages, and Durant's long-term role have been quietly circulating behind closed doors. Fans, meanwhile, have taken to social media to express a mix of disbelief and excitement. Rumor has it that Durant has been impressed by the city, the Lakers' storied history, and the prospect of chasing another championship alongside LeBron, who has publicly welcomed the idea of teaming up with fellow All-Stars in the past. Of course, the NBA rumor mill is notorious for spinning wild tales, but this one has legs. Even casual fans are catching on to the idea that Durant in purple and gold is no longer pure fantasy. If the deal comes to fruition, it could redefine the Lakers' legacy, fuel endless debates about super teams, and perhaps, just perhaps, bring Los Angeles another title. For now, the league watches and waits, the excitement building with every cryptic social media post, every insider whisper, and every late-night ESPN speculation. Kevin Durant saying yes to the Lakers could be the story of the summer, or the headline that reshapes the entire NBA landscape. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.